email? What does it mean?
Communication is the imparting or exchanging of information or news.
The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Conversation is the oral exchange of sentiments, observations, opinions, or ideas.
Forbes Books Radio presents The Conversation with Clinton M. Padgett.
Today's guest believes one of the most powerful leadership skills is also one of the most overlooked: listening. MJ Clark is Vice President of Integrated Leadership Systems, where she works with organizations across North America as a leadership consultant, executive coach, and workplace trainer. Through her work, she helps leaders become better communicators, stronger managers, and more effective collaborators. She holds a master's degree in organizational communication from Ohio State University. Oh, I should have said the Ohio State University if I listen to the people on TV all the time. And a bachelor's degree in public relations from Ohio University. She's also accredited by the Public Relations Society of America and was inducted into the PRSA College of Fellows in recognition of her contributions to the profession. MJ is the author of Leading Through Listening, a book that explores how leaders can strengthen teams, build trust, and improve performance by mastering one essential skill: truly listening. MJ, welcome to the conversation. I'm looking forward to today.
Thanks so much, Clint. I appreciate you having me.
So I like to think of all the people that come on the show as superheroes, and every superhero has an origin story. So what's your origin story?
Wow. I will start way back, just because it's interesting. I come from a family of 15 children.
Wow.
So very humble beginnings. And at age 18, I moved to Washington, D.C. to work for a U.S. senator because I was super into politics, and met my husband there, who is a native Athens, Ohio person, where Ohio University is. And he said, "You're studying journalism. You have to go to OU." So after getting married and from DC, we moved to Columbus, Ohio, and I finished up my degree at Ohio University, and really I've been doing public relations for many, many years. And I started out doing straight PR and then got kind of more into leadership after I got my master's degree in organizational communication. And I still dabble in PR. I just love it. So I end up, doing strategic communication plans for clients and all that good stuff that I used to do back in the day. I owned my own company for 11 years before I joined Integrated Leadership Systems, and I've been there 20 years, and I love what I do. Absolutely love it.
That's great. So in the book, you talk about how many professionals either talk too much or stay too quiet, both often driven by insecurity. What was the moment in your own career when you realized that listening, not talking, was actually the leadership skill that mattered most? Because you have a very personal story, which I loved.
Yeah, a mentor of mine actually gave me that feedback. And this person told me I was of the flavor of talking too much. And this person shared with me that he said, "Everything you're saying is good. It's just that it's too much of it." So he said, "It's all good stuff." It was so helpful to me. And I really didn't know how to take it at first. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, wow, that took a lot of guts for that guy to say that to me. So I really, really appreciated it. And it's been a long journey of working on listening, honestly. It took a long time to get through the urge to say something. And again, Clint, you asked about my backstory. Growing up in a family of 15 kids, everybody was talking over everybody,
I'm sure.
So getting airtime was vital. So I think that's a lot of what put me down that path initially, is just background, which we all deal with.
Well, I think I was really impressed by the fact that if somebody told me, "Clint, you talk too much," my initial reaction might be to not say anything then, to go the opposite direction. And the fact that you could actually hear that feedback, process that feedback, and then not go the opposite direction was impressive.
Yeah, I think it's very hard feedback to give, honestly. So I think hearing it was tough, but the more I thought about it, the more I appreciated the bravery that it took to say it, because you don't know what you're going to get. And there are a lot of reactive people who initially will not respond favorably to that.
Yeah, I got some questions around that coming up. So
Okay, all right.
we'll put a pin in that one for now.
Okay.
So you describe what you call quiet leadership as leading through listening. What does that actually look like when you're running a team day to day?
I feel like some of us are answer machines. We sit around and people come to us with problems and we give them answers. And I think listening thoughtfully, really hearing somebody out and deciding how to empower them to find their own answers is a big part of listening when you're leading a team. In lieu of giving people the answers, I normally say something like, wow, that is really complicated. How do you think you'll approach that? So I'm always asking them what they're going to do. I try not to supply answers. In some cases, I'm leading them to answers I already know, but I'm doing it through questions.
You're kind of like the psychologist with the person on the couch. So how does it make you feel?
I try never to say that because it does have a bad reputation.
So in all your experience coaching executives, what signals tell you a leader is talking too much instead of just really listening?
I think when leaders are talking too much, it's typically because they want to steer the conversation. They don't like what they're hearing, so they want to guide it in a new way or shut it down. So I think that's what I often see. And, I talk about psychological safety in the book, and it makes it very psychologically unsafe when a leader is going to run their agenda no matter what you say. I have clients say to me all the time, I don't even want to bring it up because I know they're just going to do what they want anyway. They're not really asking for my opinion. To me, that's a sign that that person is not feeling like they're being listened to. People might think they're listening, so I don't want to discount that. People will tell me, I do listen to him, but if they're not feeling listened to, that's more important. So what are you doing in your tone of voice, in your body language? In other ways, how are you listening without having that person feel truly heard?
Yeah, I had a boss once where he would, and told this is definitely not what you should do. You should do the opposite of this. But he would ask you questions only in the hope that he could come back after and go, "That's a terrible idea. We should never do that." It was like, why are you? Okay, then when you get exactly what you're talking about, people just shut down. They're like, okay, I won't let that happen again.
Yes, yeah, I don't want to be embarrassed. Why would I ever try this again?
Yeah, and so you kind of touched on this, but what really happens to what effect does a leader who dominates the conversation? What effect does that really have on the team performance and the team dynamics?
I feel like they don't get as robust answers as if they truly involved others. I think about that Google research, Project Aristotle, that this research was years ago, but they talked about specifically the teams in the study that they did that were most effective were so because of they termed it conversational turn taking. And when you're in a team, it's very important that everybody on that team has a turn to say what they want to say. And as you just pointed out, when people feel shut down or people feel not listened to, they're not going to participate. And you are not going to get the benefit of a completely different mind contributing to that discussion.
I think that's key because the power of a team is in the collective. And so
Yes.
you need to have the collective. I always think no matter how smart you are, the group is better than just one person. So you want to have, and the reason you have a
Every
team is
time.
this cross-functional area with the different areas of expertise. So you want that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just think of it like the belief systems that are formulated because of our backgrounds are each so completely unique that you will never have two the same. So even if you think, oh, those two guys are a lot alike, we only need one in the meeting, it's so not the case. So I always think about that, like that unique upbringing and background that each person brings is just a very different perspective. And the more you have of that, within reason, you don't want 30 people in a room trying to, draw conclusions and make decisions. but within reason, you want those varied voices as part of the discussion.
And I think that's the job of the leader, or in my case, a facilitator, because as I'm sure you know, MJ, when you have a group of 20 people, there are usually 2, maybe 3 that will, if left to their own devices, will 100% dominate the conversation. And the other, 17 are like, why am I here? And so your job as a facilitator is to try to get their opinions out on the table as well, because the reason they're there is because they have expertise that is going to benefit the project or the team. And so you have to work really hard to get those people to open up, because some people just don't want to, either because they've learned in the past that they know they're going to be, it's going to be held against them later, or they're going to be told that was a stupid idea. And so there are some things you have to do as a leader to make sure you create an environment where what I say, the truth is acceptable.
I love what you just said. I really struggle, and I'm sure you do too, when we facilitate and somebody doesn't speak up and we do want to hear from them. And then when we try to call on them or bring them out, they get very upset because they did not plan to speak, and like, why are you calling me out? And I think it's for the reasons you just stated. I think some of it is fear. Am I going to get shut down? Am I going to be made to feel stupid? Is there retribution at the end of this? And some of it is their own insecurity. Am I, an internal thing? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Is this thoughtful enough to share?
You have some people who are introverts and don't feel comfortable sharing their opinion. And then I do a lot of work with Georgia Tech in the exec ed program and some other programs. And I've been asked to speak to some of the freshmen and sophomores. And it's one of the questions that always surprises me, because it never occurred to me, is there's this imposter syndrome that they're all terrified. And I just tell them, look, you're on the team for a reason. You're the intern or you're the co-op for a reason. They didn't just pick randomly. So they value what you have to say. It doesn't mean you should talk when you have nothing to say, but if they ask you a question, you should answer it, and don't worry about, maybe it wasn't the perfect answer. Somebody else will help you get a better answer next time.
I agree. And it's so funny you bring that up, because I feel that most people who tell me they have imposter syndrome, they are amazing. Yeah. They're amazing. And I think, why are you suffering from this? I know a lot of people who should be suffering and are not. But alternatively, I have coached people who tell me they have imposter syndrome, and a very small percentage don't have the syndrome. They just are imposters. They really are not knowledgeable about what they're putting out there. So I think the vast majority, though, would so benefit from the advice you just gave, because they really are dynamos. They're doing incredibly well. Their expectations are just so very high that they're never going to meet them personally. I think that's what keeps them in that state of mind, although you would never know it, because most of those people are killing it. And if they don't tell you that, you would never guess it. Yeah.
And I think this is certainly not true of everybody, but I do know a couple people who they feel like they're imposters, and they mask it by talking nonstop. And you look at them and go, would you please just stop? Just please stop. Because every one of those things you said was a word, but they don't make any sense in sentences. So
it's like the Miss America pageant at the end, when they're so anxious that they speak and they don't even know what they're saying and nobody else does. And, you see them all on YouTube later and you think, oh no.
Yeah, there's one from South Carolina, which is where I grew up. She's infamous for that. So it's like,
oh no,
I'll follow her forever.
But I think it's truly an anxiety thing, Clint.
And it is.
What you said about talking too much, I think it can be an anxiety thing. I want to prove myself, and I'm nervous that you don't think I'm great. So I'm going to keep trying to prove it by the smart things I'm trying to say.
Later in the book, you actually talk about body language, and I don't want to jump there yet, but you mentioned if you have a room of 20 people, or I mentioned that, and you were talking about it as well. And there are probably 5 maybe that are just total introverts, but the thing is, most people aren't as good at hiding what they're really thinking as they think they are. And now my wife is famous for, her face tells you exactly what she's thinking. And she says she tries to hide it, but I don't think so. It's pretty obvious. But even people who think they can hide it, you're going to see it's on their face if they truly don't believe it. It may not be It may not be the big eye roll, although sometimes it is, but usually you'll see it on their face tightens. There'll be something in their body language that says, boy, this person did not agree with that statement. And to your point, you have to find out a gentle way of trying to get their opinion out on the table without saying, well, Clint doesn't agree with that. So Clint, why don't you agree? It's more about, do we have an alternative approach, or is there a different opinion? And so you have to be more gentle about trying to tease that information out.
I love that approach. Yeah, you really do have to communicate like this and not like this.
Yeah.
And the person you mentioned earlier, like, no, you're wrong. I'm just leading you to a place where I could tell you you're wrong, is not going to make friends and influence people. So I love your thought of how do I get that out using their body language? Because typically if somebody's really quiet, I wait until they're actually looking at me. And to me, as a facilitator, that's a sign that they may have something to say. And that's when I tend to call on them. If they're not looking at you, they do not want to participate. So that's one thing I use that's just a very small nugget. But like if they look up, I think, okay, they're somewhat open on this one, you know?
And I teach a lot of classes, and it's even, I've actually had friends I went to college with take a class from me. And this is somebody that I drank many beers with and went to parties with. And so we're good friends. And I'm teaching the class, and he'd be looking at me, and I'd make eye contact. He would look away. I'm like, what are you doing? And it's just his tendency was not that he didn't like to look people in the eye. So
I'd be like, you're supposed to be supporting me here. Like, what
exactly.
is that?
So when a leader truly listens, I mean, like really listens, what changes inside the team that most leaders don't expect? What happens that they didn't see coming? Just because as the old saying goes, you have 2 ears and one mouth, you should use them in that ratio. So assuming they actually do, what happens?
I feel when people feel fully heard, they feel respected. And I don't think leaders think that way. But I remember my son, who's now 27, when he was in high school, he wrote some paper that mentioned that he felt really respected by me. And I remember asking him about it because I was very shocked. And he said, you always listen to me like I'm somebody that you work with. Like you fully listen and care about my ideas, not like I'm a kid, like I'm somebody you truly respect. I did not think that that was a normal outcome of listening, but I was really practicing listening during that time. So I was very much paying attention to everybody I came in contact with to practice. And the fact that he felt respected, I think is something we don't see as a natural byproduct of that.
I mean, I think I was going to talk about this later, but now is a natural point.
Sure.
When you are trying to make somebody, because what you just said is he felt heard, right? I mean, he really felt heard. And that seems like a flippant statement, but it's really not. There's another common thing where people don't always remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel, right? You can give them the worst news in the world, but in a good way. And in that case, they just want to feel heard. They want to feel like you actually care about what they're saying. And one of the ways you can do that is by making eye contact. So one of the things I get mad at is when somebody's having a conversation with me and they look down at their phone, and I just want to tap them and go, is that more important than me? Because I can come back later. I mean, I'm here. It's your request,
it's
maybe.
hard.
Why are you not looking at me?
I do think people are so distracted today. So it's not, I remember I was coaching a CEO of this big energy and gas company years ago, and people kept telling me, like, he does not listen. So when I met with him, I said, what's going on? Like when somebody comes in here and wants to talk to you, what happens? And he said, well, they sit where you're sitting, which was right across from his desk. And he said, and I just have this conversation. And I said, well, what are you doing during the conversation? I said, are you looking down or looking through papers or what? And he said, well, I might answer an email, or if my phone rings, I might pick it up, or I might look at an email on my phone. And so we decided together that when anybody came to his office, he would go to this side table that he had right there. I said, just go there and invite them to come and sit. That way you don't have any of these distractions around you. And I think that was it. Like his laptop would ping and then he'd all of a sudden be looking at it and, oh, give me 1 second, I'll answer this email. And that is something we are all contending with these days, not just on the job with coworkers, but even ourselves, trying to keep us away from all the electronic noise that's in our environment.
Yeah, that actually just took me back to early in my career. I had the same boss who liked to slap people down. He would call me to
Oh,
his
no.
office, and we were remote, so it would take me 30 miles in Atlanta. It could be an hour to get there. So I would drive all the way out
Wow.
to Stone Mountain where he was from where I live on the other side of town. And I'd get there and
Uh-huh.
he'd have a conversation with me, but he wouldn't look at me. He was looking at his computer playing Minesweeper. And I always felt
No.
so dismissive. It's like, you've made me waste an hour each way. And if you're not even going to look at me, we could just talk on the phone. I mean, I'm
Oh
out here
my
watching you play
gosh.
Minesweeper while you have a conversation with me. It's just, look me in the eye, man. Come on.
And I've gotten in trouble a little bit with that. When I talk about listening nationally at conferences, every now and then someone will say, like, I have a background that it's very disrespectful to look people in the eye.
Yeah.
So I do have some people with that. I just met with someone the other day who said they were not looking at me during our meeting, and they offered it. I didn't even say it, but they said, I grew up Mennonite. And so it's very disrespectful to look people in the eye, especially someone of the opposite sex. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, very interesting. So I always throw that caveat in there.
Yeah.
But even in a business role, if you grew up a certain way, I honestly believe it does hurt you, the lack of eye contact in
Yeah.
business in the United States.
Yeah. Because it feels disingenuous. It feels like you're not really engaged in.
Yeah,
So,
what are
yeah.
you hiding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This conversation reminds me of one of my favorite guests previously was Dr. Sherry Turkle from MIT. She's written multiple bestsellers, and the two that come to mind are, one was Alone Together, and another one was called Reclaiming Conversation. And they both talk about the
Nice.
negative impact that technology has on interpersonal relationships. And so it really resonated with me when you wrote in the book, we must stop hiding behind technology. It's slowly killing our relationships.
I really believe strongly that that is the case. In fact, when all these apps and IM devices and all of the different things that we have access to came about, I remember saying to my husband, I will always have work as an executive coach because this is killing communication, and that is what I've spent my life studying and caring about. And it is exactly what you said from the book. It is killing us. And I just want people to connect. And I see it. I don't know if you have seen this, Clint, but I've seen it kind of come full circle where everything was online, 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 and digital and messages. And then lately, clients have said to me, I only want to meet in person.
Yeah.
And I think, wow, shocking. But I think it has come full circle. I think people are now getting tired of all the technology. And I also have clients who want phone calls, which is way back in the day. I mean, people, the generation above me were the ones calling all the time because they didn't have any other means.
Yeah.
So I think people asking for phone calls and asking for in-person meetings, to me, is just that cycle coming back around to people caring about communication again.
And communication is important because I don't think you can even have great teamwork if you don't have communication, and communication requires listening.
Absolutely.
Now, in your experience, what's the hardest thing for a leader to do, or to hear rather, about their own style of communication? You took it really well when the person told you maybe you talk a little bit too much. But your experience, what's hard for people to hear about that?
I think anything that they have not acknowledged themselves yet is hard to hear. So even for me, when I got that feedback, I did not think that I was talking too much. I really thought, oh, I'm this really fun, outgoing person. Everybody loves me. I mean, I really had a very skewed, thought of how I was delivering things to people and how I was engaging with others. So I think it was hard. I mean, even though I honestly did take it well, I got very introspective about it and tried to really hear it and take it in and with empathy appreciate that other person for being willing to say that. Because if he said it, I kept thinking, how many other people have thought this and not shared it?
Yeah.
So, but I think it's the stuff that's really tough to hear are those things that we don't own yet.
Which really ties into my next question really well. Because in the book you emphasize that self-awareness is the foundation of effective communication, and yet if I take what you just said, if I understood it correctly, it's most of us aren't self-aware of our flaws.
No. In a nutshell, no. I think most people, because they live in themselves all day, so they listen to themselves all day, I think they think they're doing it all right. I mean, because of how they think about how the world works, their own self-definition, which is often skewed, I think those things lead us to believe that everything is great. We really do. I think I talk in the book about journaling because I talk in every book about journaling. It's such an important piece for self-awareness. You mentioned body language earlier. When I'm droning on and on, what are other people looking like? What is their facial expression, like we discussed? What is their body language telling me? If they are rolling their eyes or they're saying, uh-huh, 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 they're not listening to me. So can we take those clues and really use them to understand ourselves better? I think self-awareness is very, very tricky for most people. I think we all think we are self-aware, and I would argue that most of us are not at all self-aware.
And sometimes it's, look, I got to where I'm at because I am who I am. So why would I need to change that? I must be doing something right, or I wouldn't be the senior vice president or the project manager or the product manager or whatever.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if you use 360 assessments in what you do, but when we use them and people look at their results and they figure out that they are not very self-aware, they'll usually say, "Why have I not been fired yet?" And I always think, "Oh, like you are doing good. You're doing good things. Do you want to be great or do you want to be amazing? If you're already amazing, do you want to be phenomenal?
Right.
Like, what is that ladder?" And for me, it's about sharpening the saw. It's about always getting better. So you can still be effective in your job. You can still be making money for your company and all those good things. But where are you on that ladder and where do you want to be? If you want to go up a rung or two, you are going to have to understand yourself better. And that's the tricky piece because I live in me listening to me all day long.
And I'm great.
Yeah, I would not fire me. So,
So there's so many things in the book that I just love when you were saying it. One of them is in classes that I teach, we still provide printed manuals for the students to use in our 2-day class. And yes, they have blank spaces where people have to fill in the missing word or write the concept or the answer that I write on the tablet up in the front of the room. And every now and then somebody will say, "Come on, man, this is 2026. Why can't you just send me this electronically?" And I'll let you answer because I know you're a strong advocate for handwriting and journaling. So why is handwriting more effective than just typing on a screen or tapping on a screen from a brain perspective?
yeah, it actually it ignites different areas of your brain if you are writing with a pen or pencil or if you are typing something. Same with if you're talking to someone like we are, different areas of your brain are lighting up. And I find when I teach, I always have handouts. And I think I probably have some people in the room thinking the same thing, like, "Why are you giving me paper? How many trees have you killed today?" And I really think that, especially for learners, there are different types of learners. So if I'm an auditory learner, I want to hear you. If I'm visual, I want to see your PowerPoint. If I'm tactile, I want to be writing something to really have it sink in. So I really think for learning, that's especially important. And I think for us, it creates more engagement. I'm listening to you, I'm looking at this paper, and I'm writing, and it's all three things. So we're hitting all different kinds of learners. When I want to learn something, if I'm buying a book, if it has a workbook, I always get the workbook. And I created a workbook for Leading Through Listening, my book, because of that very thing. I love them because they just have more experiential learning. They just add to my learning to be filling something out while I'm learning.
They still do studies today that prove this out, that you retain better when you write something on paper than if you just type it. Because when you type it, it's more of a stream of consciousness in one ear and then through your fingers to the keyboard. But when you're listening to somebody talk and you're writing, then you do tend to remember it more. And I've done sessions where back in the old days, before we had tablets, we had the overhead projectors where you'd put the ceramic or the plastic sheet on and write on it. And there was a time where
back in those days.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a time when I'd broken my right hand and I couldn't write. So what I did was, rather than clean my slides, I just left them filled out and I just uncovered the answer. And what was interesting to me is when I didn't write, they did, even though on their piece of paper it had a blank, 90% of the people didn't fill in the blank. But when I write,
how interesting.
You write. And I will often observe when I write on the left-hand side of the page, they'll write on the left-hand side of the page. When I write on the right-hand side of the page, they write on the right-hand side of the page. And that still happens today.
That is so fascinating. That's a research study right there.
Probably
That's
so.
That's fascinating. We always research things we already know, but it's like, no, I have to prove this.
Exactly. Well, that concludes part one of my conversation with MJ Clark, Vice President at Integrated Leadership Systems and author of Leading Through Listening. Coming up in part two, MJ talks about why she encourages leaders to start with trust rather than requiring that others earn it first.
To me, we can start with trust or start with distrust. It's an option either way. So no matter which way we start, we will find out if we can trust that person.
Yeah.
Right? So I always think about, I want to approach it positively. So I'm going to assume that you're going to do what you say you will do. And if not, then I know I can't trust you perhaps, and I'm all for second chances if something crazy came up. But I'm going to find out either way. So I just like to take a positive approach. And I think people appreciate right out of the gate that I'm willing to give you something.
Thanks for listening to The Conversation. To find out more about Clint, go to ClintonMPaget.com and pick up Clint's book, How Teams Triumph, Managing by Commitment, at Amazon. The Conversation with Clinton M. Paget is a production of Forbes Books.